Don't think there's enough posts.
I'm not doing that again.
Literally right there. And Ed, when I make a shopping list, the first thing on my list.
Hey folks, we're getting ready to get started. We're going to start here in just a second. And I'm Wagner Abernathy, and I'm the mayor of Beech Mountain. And you know, I look at the folks that came to this meeting as Jim's over there laughing. Are you laughing at me? So I look at you guys as being, you know, the shareholders of Beech Mountain, and it's nice that we've got the participation that we have with the folks that live here on Beech and the interest that you've taken in this. And I think it's been a great investment for the town to be able to have this organization come to Beech Mountain and present a roadmap of what the future could be on Beech Mountain. So again, thank you for attending.
Thank you, Wagner.
Thank you.
And I played tennis with Carol Beckman this morning, and they said she was good, but she's not.
Oh, and I heard the same about you, and that's really true.
Okay, that's kind of a hard act to follow, but yes, well, thank you all very much. Thanks for coming so often to this. It's kind of like being in the kitchen and watching, you know, how the meal's being made. You've been here helping us with it all week. So today, what we've tried to do is to just put our arms around it and reduce the last week into about 50 slides. And so we'll be showing you this. And it's really our initial launch point into this work that'll probably be going on for the, you know, between now and October. So without that, I'm just going to launch right in. Let's see. Keep that out of the way. Okay. So let's see, Jonah. How do I make it go forward? Press the right arrow. Click
Always yes, we don't. Bremer 9 years. He forgets
All right, so, okay, so, you know, this is what we call a race car slide. It has all the decals on it, like, you know, like a race car. But, you know, this project team, and I think we're going to change it going forward, is citizens of Beech Mountain. You guys have been a tremendous part of this process. And then you have all the different design teams along here. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. You've heard us giving you that kind of stuff all week, so I'm sure you're tired of that. But what was also kind of cool is that when people came to us during the workshop, you stuck a dot about where you live, all over town, and so we have citizens from all over Town of Beech Mountain, and I think even some from outside who shared with us where they're from all week. And so, week one observations. Town leadership has said over and over again, don't give me a plan that I can put on the shelf. I want an actionable plan. Town has reached full-time critical mass. Some private landowners are very interested in a cooperative plan, one that they can see they can benefit from as well as the town. Said this the other day, town owns a lot of the land in the study area. A couple other things, the hurricane has dramatically changed parts of the town. It's time to rebuild, a real opportunity for us. Change is coming, either make a plan for managed growth, or the growth is gonna just take its own direction. But all these kind of come together, that there's some momentum for positive change in the town. A couple of observations for this week. You all are endowed with some of the best scenery in the United States, so don't mess it up, okay? I know, that's what you want to don't mess it up, okay? And so this is, excuse me?
That's why we're here.
That's why you're here, right.
All of us came for that.
And so, I know, the first meeting that you all came into, I was like, wow, there was a lot of passion in that meeting. And I think you kept the passion. It's just that I hope we're working for you at the moment. Keep the scenery, okay? And focus on the scenery. It's one of your best assets. A couple of observations just this week. Everyone loves their homes on Beech Mountain. In fact, you're sort of one gigantic neighborhood. It's like driving from home to home to home. People love their homes, renovate a lot, they're beautiful homes from a lot of different periods. You love working with the native materials. Lots of rock, and there's sort of lots of design details that can come out of that. And so we want to be conscious of it and use that. Another observation, y'all are one of the wealthiest communities that we work in. In fact, so wealthy, we had to put locks on the trash can. I've never worked in a community the trash can.
Just rendering
There's 300-pound criminals, right? And so, just an observation, without anybody telling me that before. And another thing is, I know a number of you have lived here a long time, and it's like there's a culture here which has been really cool for you to share it with us. I'm not supposed to say Greensboro Mafia, but some people are kidding us about, well, we're off of Greensboro. There's a whole bunch of folks that moved up here from there. But anyway, there's a wonderful sense of community. It's like an enormous family that we're working in. So we really appreciate the hospitality. And I know it's a very important part of this, and whatever we do should not mess that up. It's cool. I mean, I don't see it. Especially, I'll tell you what, we've worked in a lot of resort towns. I don't think I've ever seen that sense of community in a resort town like we've seen it here. So we're gonna try to be very sensitive to that. Also, I'm sure your friends have said, who are those lost people wandering around all week? And so we've really enjoyed being here. And the other thing I'll mention, I don't know if it's occurred to you, but this town building in a group setting is a type of participatory democracy. In fact, we say the more fingerprints that are on this map, the better it will be. That is absolutely a fact. And so I really appreciate all you guys. The chocolate covered hands all over the maps all week. And we're gonna continue that process, next to Red as well. So I really appreciate you participating in this. Think about it, we're making something for the next generation. We probably won't all see it get entirely built. So this is an amazing way for the hours that you spend to invest as a gift to somebody in the future. Okay, now, Whitney had put these themes together, and I believe maybe we saw this even further, as people put sticky notes all over the boards this week. Some of the themes that have emerged from earlier conversations and confirmed. And remember these when I start to show you the early plans. Transform Beech Mountain from a resort town to a mountain destination. Circulation and parking are key to the commercial center's success. Balance the needs of tourists, seasonal and full-time residents. Create a community gathering space in the center of town. Provide for more walkable and pedestrian-friendly community. And build upon the assets already here. So things like the views are part of our building blocks of what we're gonna show you as an example. Okay, so I know you've heard, I believe everybody in the room I've already seen at least at one meeting, so we'll go quickly over a couple of things. Next, Aaron, Aaron promised me 4 slides, 2 minutes. So
I
start.
don't think I said 2 minutes. But really, we did spend a lot of time yesterday talking about the market research, and I just wanted to just refresh your memories real quick and clarify a couple of things. First, when we look at your community, we did establish a trade area. We talked about that. That's where our primary customer base is coming from that serves our local businesses. We know that we're a small town. We're 681 people. But our trade area is defined by this geography as over 30,000 people. And that's really important because our businesses that we have here, or in particular the businesses that we will have here, will support that larger area. We are, here in Beech Mountain, we have higher median incomes than the entire region. That's a real positive demographic. And we're projected to grow. The 28604 zip code is projected to grow faster over the next 5 years. Again, real positive demographics overall. Then, of course, we talked about housing. This is the wrong slide, but your median home value is in the upper portion of the region as well. It's gone up 111% over the last 5 years. I know that every one of these stats, I'm telling you something that you already know, but it just confirms that. One of those things is 77, probably a little bit more than that, percent of your homes here, your housing units are seasonal or second homes. We all know that. We did look at the second home or the short-term rental market, and you can see the vast amount of listings that are here in this area. But the most important thing is it's pretty profitable. This is average within the sub-district, for the short-term rental sub-district. On average, each unit is making about $45,000 a year, or on average, they're making $45,000 a year. So we know that's a significant market, and it shows there's an investment market here as well. Now, retail, this was the second meeting we had yesterday. We talked about commerce. So when we look at those trade areas, when we look at consumer patterns, when we understand the visitor market that's coming in here, we can actually translate the demand that exists in those areas. So in our primary and secondary trade area, there's $331 million of demand that exists out there. Now, you all can't recapture all of that, so we do a very conservative scenario. So what I'm sharing with you here is probably the opportunity is really more than this. But we show right now, based off today and projected 5-year growth of commercial dining retail, that you all can potentially support up to 152,000 square feet of additional retail. And just as a frame of reference, we would never suggest a Walmart come here, but the Walmarts that we go to from time to time, they're about 250,000 square feet. So that's kind of the scale of what we're talking about here. And then it breaks down into all of these different categories. We've looked at many more than this, but when we're thinking about a commercial district, these are the types of businesses that we probably want to have in that area. So, so furniture stores, health, personal care, gas stations. Y'all told us that we need a gas station. Well, there's demand for that here. And you can see all the other categories. I won't go into a whole lot of detail except for one, just to give a little bit of clarification. I mentioned the square footage and demand for restaurant potential that you have here. Well, in fact, the vast majority of that demand is not the type of sit-down restaurants that we have here. That's just a small portion of that. But it's more what we call limited service, and that could be anything from a cafe, a coffee shop, a deli, basically places where you go and order at the counter. It could be takeaway pizza. It could also be fast food. So the point of that is that's a big portion of what the demand happens to be. The question is that the type of thing that we want to cultivate in our downtown destination district? And we'll talk about that more as we go through. And then finally, the visitor market, we looked at the different seasons. We tracked the total number of visitors that were coming into our community over the course of the year. For Beech Mountain proper, in our downtown district, which is about 462,000 people. But we also tracked that by seasons. And I will say, I've got some preliminary data after the conversations we had yesterday. I need to dial it in. This was this was basically Helene numbers here. The previous year, it's at least 3 to 4 times as big as that. So stay tuned. I'm gonna have a lot more information for that moving forward. But this obviously is here. We do this so that we can understand what makes sense, what can be supported, and inform the rest of the plan.
Thanks, Aaron. And you know what, as Aaron came up with that, Tom was starting to sketch it out, that 125,000 square feet would be a main street 4 blocks long. That number of businesses, it's almost like that flowing right. Yes, sir. Look, yes, sir.
What's a unique visitor?
Oh, Aaron, yeah.
Same question right here. So that 462,000, that was total number of visits. So many of you might have visited the area over, many times over the course. So you would be one unique visitor in that, but you may have come into the district 100 times over the course of the year. So that's the difference between total visits and unique visitors.
Okay, thanks. So also, Rick Hall's been with us all week and has started to work on some transportation and traffic data that really will support the next slides that we'll show you.
You know that the winter season is a lot busier traffic-wise than the rest of the year. And this just shows that January, 160,000 trips for the month of January, and only 60,000 for the month of October. So that we found traffic counts that backed up what you understand. And we went through these 10 walkability factors. They're so crucial, though. This is a David Letterman countdown backwards. We got street trees are important because street trees in the peripheral vision of the driver give them a sense of how fast they're going. And if they're going by really fast, that foot should come off the accelerator a little bit. Traffic volumes, if you begin to increase the traffic volumes, sometimes people will slow down and make the walkability easier for that. Sidewalks, very important, but not in the top 10. Not in the top 5. Narrow streets. You understand that if lanes are tighter, then you get a sense as a driver that you should be slowing down. And the pedestrians see that, and the pedestrians come out of the woodwork and join the party. Interconnected streets. You'll see in any of the plans that we've proposed for or documented so far that an interconnected network of streets, not a perfect grid like a checkerboard, but a network allows the pedestrians to move and go right and left. You can take, if there's some nice blooming flowers on one street, you can, I would go over there for the next week and watch some of that blossoming happening. On-street parking, it allows somebody that's further away to come in and bring a friend or two, and you can park once, and then those people can go to 2 or 3 different things, post office and wherever you want to go. Lower traffic speeds are crucial where you set the speed limit. Mix of land use gives you something different to which you can walk, as opposed to it all being exactly the same and leaving you no option to have a great trip. And buildings really need to come closer to the front of the street. That's one of the key differences between the suburbs and the town center. The suburbs, all the buildings are pushed back away, and near the good walkable places, you allow the sidewalk to go along, and then a pedestrian can just jump right in the door. of the adjacent building, and which is their destination. And small block size makes all 3 or 4 of these other parameters come to fruition. If you have small block size, then you have a better chance of mixing up the land use, keeping the buildings to the front, and it's just the best way to do it. Context. The engineers need to be told what the context is for different parts of your town. And for the past 60 to 80 years, myself included, the engineers were focusing just on suburban streets, 4 and 6 lane streets, and then rural. So those are the 2 contexts that we focused on. And only when I met up with some of these urban designers that really knew what was happening did I understand you got 7 or 8 different context types, and the streets then need to be designed to match that context. Narrow and skinny for a downtown town center, and then wider for the suburban streets. And the state of North Carolina has broken out a whole series of urban and suburban street types, context types. And we've selected the ones that are in bold: town center residential on the edge of the town center, and then suburban center, basically the ski resort, that's out in the suburbs and it's a major center down there, and then regular suburban and out in the countryside. And so we've established mapping of each of those types of context that we can then remember that the streets need to be designed differently for those different context areas. That's the most interesting one that we've found all week is the color in the center is your town center context. It's the characteristics that over the next 10, maybe 15 years, you can visualize having a town center develop there. We've heard some people that are even interested in seeing that develop into a real town center that's walkable. And then the green around it is the suburbs, and then the one area out here is the ski resort, which obviously needs some different characteristics of street design for that particular context. And this is for the entire town limits plus beyond the town limits, and that's how the context areas play out for that. So your town center is really a relatively small number of acres, but it's so crucial to the diversity of the economy and sustainability of the economy. And when you have those context areas identified, rural, whether it's an arterial collector or local street, they're generally further apart, larger blocks, and then the suburban, where most of your homes are, the streets are a lot closer together. And then when you finally get down into the town center, that's where your blocks get very, very small. And that scale is so important to understand.
All right, thanks, Rick. Okay. All right, guys, so here's, we thought if we got that much done, we'd be happy, but we couldn't resist jumping in a little deeper, and Tom wants me to explain this is, we're gonna show you some chicken scratching, okay? This is the very beginning of a plan, because we thought, we call this fast thinking. We've just been here a week, and so it's really the last couple of days, just sketch this, well, here he is still going, sketch this, sketch that. After we get your thoughts, we go through a period of slow thinking, which is, well, this would actually be better like this, and this is better. So we're gonna show you some chicken scratching here, and get your thoughts on it. First, just the mapping. I've gotta tell you, we rarely get mapping as good as we've gotten it here at Beech Mountain. You all have got really good resources and helpful for, I'm sure, anything that you want to take on as well. Jonah developed this extraordinary map of slope, and if you know your color, green light is go, red light is stop, and a lot of stop here on this mountain. Slopes greater than 25%. And it's like, you think of it as a land planner, it's like, well, there are different categories of slopes that are great for anything, and no wonder these guys thought ski slopes are perfect, when they're all the red areas. But what's interesting to me, the town center, this is the area we're considering for the town center, right at the top of the hill is the saddle. This is where the land gets quite flat. This is also kind of a fun map. This is our rainbow map. This is every 100 feet or so it changes color. So we've never worked in a town where we could get the full rainbow, but of the different topography as you go up and down the slopes. Much of our next conversation is going to be about the town center area, and the very first map is fascinating because it's all generally flat. And what's interesting is generally flat, but then you'll get these cliffs. So be careful. We can't make the roads completely line up, but and I'm sure you all already know this, but for us as planners, this one's kind of interesting. Flat for a while, but then you get one of these. So it helps us to understand the plan better.
What it referred to as the meadows, somebody told me?
Yeah, the meadows.
The meadows.
The meadows, right in this area, right? Yeah. And yeah, some beautifully nice looking land. Okay, and let's see. This was just to start to learn some property lines. We were able to get really good topography, and then these are tax map lines. You've probably seen it if you look at the town GIS. The blue ones indicate property that the town owns. Yellow are private sector ownership. Okay, one of the things that are a very important building block of everything that you've told us are the views. And so if we look at from the town center site, one of the first views that's important to us is looking up here toward the top of the mountain where everybody gets off the gondola. Kind of a nice landmark, right? So that's an important view. The meadows, right? You guys are mentioning looking, yeah, that was toward Grandfather Mountain, right? Cool, okay. Then kind of getting back on the other side, where the old stable was, kind of looking down that way. So another spectacular view, different from the other. This one we call the car wash view. This is when the trucks come out of the car wash and they're looking down. They have the best view. You can imagine coming through that car wash, all that soap and windshield wiper, and like, wow. And they get the best view of North Carolina. We definitely take advantage of that.
Tennessee and Virginia.
And, yeah, we've seen Tennessee and Virginia. So there you go. So
Yeah,
I don't have to sell you guys this. This is a resource that most of our clients wish they just had one of these. And you've got a whole town of them. And so orienting things like streets to enjoy those views, so the public can get those views, and preventing big buildings from blocking those views, two super important things as we go forward. It's interesting, the 1970s version of this was one of the hotels that you have. The 1970s built the hotel, and then it looks like last 20 years it kind of moved out and put the picnic shelter to get the great view, and then it lined up like 20 picnic tables along there to get the great view. So even starting to take advantage of that from a marketing perspective. There's the meadow, and this is one of the sledding hill, right? In the mountaintop beyond, right? And so, interesting, people said that's not the only important thing here. This is too, right? So if so as a designer, you get to, here's what we do. We get to mess with this. This part's really pretty. This part's really pretty. Do something with this part in the middle. So that so the foreground, the background, and that middle ground we might make better. A couple other observations before we really dive in. Your trail network is getting very healthy, and we learned a lot about the importance of your trails here at Beech Mountain. The existing landscape, a bit,
Sparse.
Just say it's landscaping.
Okay, fix this
Opportunities.
as we rebuild it, not talking about the roads, but, no sidewalk, overhead utilities. Fix all this as we work on the new design. And, Rick, you didn't know I was gonna put this in there. There's a lot of places in town where people, I think reacting to the traffic and something like, well, no, just put a bunch of rocks in. Remember, if we can fix creativity, it won't be this person's problem, right? And so fix that kind of stuff. And one other thing, capacity. We work for a lot of towns, and I wasn't asked to say anything about this, but you guys seem to have capacity to do this. And other towns I work for, I'll just tell you, they don't. You guys seem to have a capacity with town hall, with your, I've never been in a town with 681 residents that has a parks commission, a planning commission. I mean, you all probably on all those commissions, but you all have the capacity to undertake this plan, and I think do it really well. Okay, so we're diving in. You ready? Okay, so this is gonna take a few minutes to get through. We have 3 different gesture drawings to get us started. And so, this is just first, it's like Tom said, we're not gonna, oh, Bob, you got here just right time. We're just getting into this. This is not where we're gonna say, what, not yet, and then too late. Here we are right in the middle. You can see what we've just knocked out in the last couple of days. So let me orient you first. The gray building here is Town Hall. Down here, you probably recognize this road, that goes to the top of the mountain, right? And the road that comes up, might need a, how far your ruler, Tom? Thank you. Here's the road coming up from Banner, Elk. You go by Town Hall, down this way, Fred's is right here with the red roof. We go down this way to the place I think you call it the Lookout. This is the 3 old hotels, the 4th hotel, which has been closed for a number of years. Zigzag down, and then come on over to the entrance to the ski resort. So all these will be oriented the same way. So one of the very first things we thought about is, and Rick will say this here. First thing Rick said is, if we didn't do anything else, we'll put a roundabout at the entrance to the ski resort. Because everybody is waiting to turn and wait. There's the first solution to solve, what, okay. Then think about other potential roundabouts, and some of these, that's probably the most important one, and also one is as a gateway into town. This could be here, it could be here, but somewhere along in here, and then maybe one other somewhere, but probably the most important one is that one. But some of these are take it or leave it, but they depend on the scheme. So, all right, let me show you just a few other things that we started to do here. This involves public sector land, and it also involves some private sector land. And so, one of the reasons we do a number of schemes is, some people say, no, I don't wanna play. That's okay. We have another scheme. And sometimes, you can implement, the advantage of a grid kind of concept is you implement pieces gradually, and if people wanna play later, we can include them in. So, a couple of things that continue to orient you. There's a road here that goes kind of around the ridge and then wanders off toward the wedding venue, okay, Overlook Barn, okay. This is the pinnacle here, you can see this. Okay, so connecting the dots, and one would be to go ahead and make that road a real road, and wind it around backside of the pinnacle, bring it through some low topography here at the edge of the property line, and then down connecting really where you got some of these things connected to an alley already, and down to the overlook place, right? And so I know a lot of the problems with traffic backup start to happen in here. So all of a sudden, there's another way through, right? So, and particularly with residents, if you know you've got traffic jams all through here, you've got a second way. And then think about this one, here's another one. If we could get this property here, a way to get through even easier and quicker, you know, to that. And if the property owner to the north were to play a road through there to connect to, there's a park right here. Are you noticing? Perry Park. There, so that all of a sudden those residents who have to wander around like crazy can get on that. So you start to connect all this. If the hotels would play, you connect their routes, make them roads, and then start to put a grid of streets in here to be your downtown center. And next observation is, we call it the center of gravity, and we'll be showing you several where the center of gravity is sort of the hub of some of the commercial things. It's where the body heat, you know, it's where people are all walking around. Some of these will kind of look at center of gravity near town hall. Others say the coolest thing you got is the sledding hill. Make the center of gravity around the sledding hill. Make that our town common.
It's Jim's Hill.
Thank you, Jim.
What kind of hill?
Jim.
Jim Hill?
It's Jim's Hill.
Okay, Jim's Hill. We'll label it that way next time. But bring your center of gravity around there, you know, make that the sort of denser town common. And then, remember we were talking about the car wash view, right here, we come out of the truck wash, and keep that a big green, so it keeps the view down that valley for everybody. And so you'll see in this, there are a number, and then there's a great view out here, so if you do this, keep this as a little town green and common. And if you eliminate that building that's right there, that's gonna cover that property, like an incredible park right there. And then, Old Sledding Hill, I think, well, this was Sledding Hill for a little while, but this is complicated, but there's gotta be a way to get, there's something fun that you'll see in all these. People were telling us an unusual thing about Beech Mountain, and when Jen and I here were January, all the people get out of these houses and they march up here and just take off down the slope. Like, how in the world can you do that without, one of these ski passes? Say, oh, we just go down the mountain and then get that done and then get on the lift. And people said that's actually how it's always been in Beech Mountain, right? And I know actually somebody was telling me, yeah, a bunch of people park their car here and clutter up the road and they do it. And so, what if you could make this whole town better connected to that idea, and so you can, continue that existing tradition, or you can even make it better where there are places to get a pass, up here, so that you can come and park your car. If you had say a hotel here, or whatever, put on your skis, ski down the greenway, launch, and even for example, this street we can deal with. You can't park there, but you can ski down the side of the street, all the way up to here, all the way up to the pinnacle on a trail, so that you can make that work, so that you reduce the traffic all along that big road. Everything we're trying to do, you'll see, kind of plays into that. Reduce that traffic. Come in here, check in, and then get on the lift, or get on the slope. We'll get you on the lift later. So this zooms in for a little bit more detail of that. And these are just earliest drawings of how this might all work. These black lines are roads. We try to make our city blocks 200 or 300 feet in each direction. And some of the most intense activity, remember, I believe Tom's sketch indicated about, for commercial activity, about 4 blocks, double loaded streets. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a lot, this isn't all commercial, it's just, that would be the most intensive of commercial activity. And of course, it wouldn't just be single story buildings, you wanna do that mixed use, so you have other things on top. So, you know, very first artist sketch, okay, it's, Tom, this is one where, Peter, who you saw over here working diligently all week. So here's the idea, here's the Google Earth view, here's, how that little area might look to give you the view down the valley, and you know, you see that ring with different types of housing and stuff like that. So, you know, that's the very first kind of massing diagram of that kind of long oval green we were looking at. Okay? Let's look at another one. And so I won't have to dwell on these too much. I'll just show you the differences. Okay, this option also uses, whose hill is it? Jim's hill? Okay, make sure we get that.
Call him Brooks.
Okay, Brooks's Hill. Brooks's Hill. We'll make a special street name for that, actually. This one goes into a little bit more, you know, dividing and kind of tightening these. You get these fun little triangular areas where the roads come together. Same big idea. This one says, well, what if we really use this area to develop more into roads that could connect even that way on the mountain. And again, you do connect into this this neighborhood here. That's generally the only difference in these two, I believe. And then there's a let's see. Let's look at the detail of this one. You know, there's some subtleties. I think the other one had a like a greenway through here. There's some subtle differences, but generally the same idea of how you work with the landscape. This one does also say, if we're gonna go to the trouble to make this a boulevard, wouldn't it be nice to have Pinnacle, you know, they have to go all the way around back to go in. Wouldn't it be nice to invite them to have a front door onto the, you know, onto the town center? You know, if they were interested in something like that, connect them in so that they don't have to go all the way out like that. They can come on through the town center. Doesn't mean you have to close the other, just have another way out. Okay? And then here's how the common in this one works. Let's see, we changed the name of it 3 times. What is it, Carmen? Brooks is common, right there. You see down at the bottom, you know, that roundabout in front of Town Hall, it kind of helped clean up some of that landscape. The pizza guys are here. They'll help them to build a back part of the common for them. Imagine all the different food trucks and stuff. Maybe it's restaurants. Just the hot chocolate stand, restaurants, whatever. And you know, maybe at the top of that green you put something really important. People have been saying, well, we've been thinking about maybe an additional gym or additional you know, smaller version of the community center up top. Could be a really cool thing to put on the green. Or it could be a hotel, it could be anything. But just it'd be a very important landmark site at the top of the green because everybody's gonna get the view of the ski mountain. So starting to think about how that might work. Okay? Here it is without the photo underneath. Here's our car wash view here. And then of course that was our, I hate to jump to design, but we're gonna get some porch swings and put them right here. Get a bunch of So the last one of these takes this idea a little further. Remember Tom was showing yesterday these pictures, I think it was Aspen, where the town and the ski slope really join up. And I've taken that lift in the summer, it just dumps you out there right at the edge of town. And it's like, wow, this is great, and then walking into town. So we may be able to do that here. So this concept, a lot of the other parts of it are similar. This doesn't mess as much with the sort of long green here. But instead, by the way, restroom building, right there. We just built all that restroom building, you can keep that. And so it shifts the common just a little bit, makes it a little wider, and then has a greenway comes out to the traffic, I'm sorry, to a roundabout and up here. This is a supplemental ski lift. And so, if you're staying on the common or anywhere in this area, strap on your skis. We'll take you over the road. Don't be out here. Ski on down and get your pass. Alternatively, buy your pass at the rec building, you know, so that the town and resort work better together on something like that. And that, again, takes people off the road, right? So, you know, I think it'd be much more fun to do it that way. If I was a guest, you know, staying in this lodge, I'll just strap on and see you later. On down. So, yes.
So it might be a little too early for you to even know the answer to this, but if the different designs that you're conceptualizing, how much like actual parking do you think it could accommodate? And do you envision any above ground garages or in the earth garages?
Yeah, I think
Part of
that's,
this design?
yeah, you're right, it is, we haven't started to do that yet, but it's definitely next step, is, you know, if you like these ideas, which is perfect timing for this question, which is, you know, none of this takes any parking yet into account. But if you have to have parking for all these, businesses that Aaron had mentioned, parking for anybody that wants to live in this area, and if you can park your ski guests here, then, you know, they don't clutter up the road getting down there. So I believe next thing we're gonna study is, you know, with each of these, how much parking do you have to have and where do you put it so that you don't end up with, you know, masses of parking lots as I see. So hiding it in structures sometimes can work, especially if you're, you know, I noticed today there's some of the houses as we drive down here, you gotta get like 3 stories up before you even have a finished floor. You know, so it's the same thing with some of these, if you use the terracing well, those cliffs that are on that map, you know, there may be ways to get cars under these buildings in ways that, you know, almost like free space for them. So we'll be working on that map. Thanks for the question though. Okay, yeah, we zoom in on that a little bit, you can kind of see the ski piece. Oh, and this takes people over the old sledding hill, which I understand was full of, you know, twisted ankles and stuff, but we'll go right over top, stay right over top. Okay, so one of the deals is, let me go back and show you this. You know, a lot of these schemes move the town's water tanks, right? Which we have to do it in a way that would make them on a parallel height. We can't like move them down to the rec center because you gotta have water at that height. So we're thinking about ways to move them, you know, maybe in one of these park spaces, maybe not that simple, but some of these other park spaces. And so, yeah, it's been thought, you know, if you did that, how could you do it in a pretty way? Well, you make the tanks part of some kind of recreational thing. So, in fact, somebody said, we drew this and somebody said, oh yeah, have you seen the one in Johnson City? Somebody's already done this somewhere else. But you know, combine your Parks and Rec and your you know, municipal resources like that. Okay, so let's get down to a little bit more detail of first thoughts. And Tom, I'm gonna, if you're okay with this, I'm gonna toss you the ball on this to explain the two concepts. All right. Yes.
Could you go back 2 slides very, just briefly?
Okay.
The solution to congestion is diversify your network, give more alternatives for a driver. And that's, look at what that does. The 2 roundabouts to the right and left allow you to not have to go all the way down to go right through by City Hall. You can go north, you can go through. So multiple opportunities for taking diverse paths, both as a driver and a cyclist and a walker.
I believe it was one of these, you were looking at one of these, I think, and you figured out, here's what a tourist is gonna do, here's what a resident's gonna do, because residents are smarter, they know some of these that are.
Backwards.
Yeah. Right. So that's right, you know, residents are gonna go, they're gonna go on this one way over here, you know, they won't ever see a tourist. But tourists might, when they leave, they might go through there as a shortcut, you know. So the more alternatives, the better. So Tom, want to explain the more detailed plans?
Yes.
Okay.
Where's our team? While they're doing that, could you come over and take a picture of this?
Yeah.
and this is the third one.
And we're gonna
Late
squeeze it
entry.
in at the end of the.
Yeah, come on over and just real quick, hold the camera up, I'll turn the lights up.
So we have a 1 minute break.
While you're doing that, someone else, come on over. Y'all do it together, I have to run outside.
All right, we're gonna take a 1 minute break. Take 5, everybody.
Just send it to me.
This is your, you get the picture.
Wait, get the lights clear.
Oh. And here, take a picture of this.
By the way, we're still live. It's just kind of weird. Sorry, all you folks listening at home, you'll just have to take 5. This is what we would normally have advertised. That's whatever y'all want to advertise, here's your chance. Yes, sir.
In all these scenarios, it looks like Public Works and the Convenience Center have to be located.
So far in each of these, that's right. So they would find them a better place that might have less real estate value. And property, yeah. Oh, and it wouldn't be like instant. I think there's a part of Public Works that's, they call it Old Public Works. It's a lot, we stage it so that it would be, phased, right? So it would be, we should probably develop that first, and then as current Public Works kind of ages, we move that too.
Yeah, I think logistically, they're not in a great location.
Right. But yeah, so that's a win-win if we can find them a better place.
Well, they are, but then.
Well, Andy owns property, I don't think you're.
Hey, Baptists doing in the back row here.
We're hecklers.
Hecklers.
Yeah, just, we don't have time.
Need some tomatoes or
If
something?
we don't have time.
Did you, go to any of the other meetings?
I went to yesterday, but I didn't believe it was it's online, you can go look at it. Talked about it.
Town, you have to download Town Beach.
I can't figure out.
Yeah, I think you can get it.
How do you download the meetings from the site? I can't find a place to do it. Okay, how do you do it? How do you get to the meeting?
There should be something on the Town of Beech Mountain. Meetings and agendas
I think, I'm not using.
I don't do Facebook. Too much intrusion on my private life.
So,
Monday we're going down to Athens, tandem bike ride.
is that for 3 days?
6 days of riding.
So Vicky's up here with you?
She'll be coming up Saturday or Sunday.
That's good.
I
Man,
hope.
I can't keep, I don't know, you keep.
I don't keep her. She shows up, I know she's here.
You know, your house is when you were here, not here.
You need me to put, take the flag down when I'm going, put the flag down here so you know.
Just keep your door,
Front door open.
Yeah, the front door is my key.
Well, I used to keep it, in the wintertime, I keep it open because the sun's shining in and it burns up that brown door. You used to be able to paint the paper. So I open it in the wintertime, and now the sun's not above the porch, that's not coming down. I like the idea we convert number one into a gondola. the unloading station at the top of the slope, and then it continues on to, you know, an unloading spot somewhere in the town center. And you don't have to have skis. People can go up and down just to, you know, visit. The gondola station, you can go find out skis.
It's a great idea for a resort. I guess my question is, why do you participate in it?
Well, I don't, yeah, Stanford,
Are you around? Is this going to be
Grandpa.
I'm not positive, but yeah, I think there's some information that you
explaining this to somebody without having a landmark?
Yeah. It's just, yeah, I think we're gonna have this all scanned.
Roundabout at the ski entrance is the best idea I've heard today. And then if Vanderbilt could put one in down at their stoplight, we have
No, don't.
I'll play pickle there.
That's why I don't go during ski season. I go to Ingles and move on. Well, roundabout, the parking lot full, it just makes sense to right back up instead of having to make a U-turn.
Okay, great. Y'all set? So, this is our first pin-up, and we typically say you really need at least a minimum of 3 feedback loops. Because on the first pin-up, we get almost everything wrong, okay? And then you all inform us in terms of how to fix it, which is important. And we spend some time then adjusting, making changes, updating. And then in the second one, we usually get about maybe 60–70% of it right. And then we get another round of feedback and discussion. And by the hopefully by the third feedback loop and presentation, we can get about 95% consensus. That's our goal. So when we, what I said before, when you hear this too early to tell, oops, too late to change. If you know anybody that hasn't participated up to this point, this is for the time for them to weigh in and check things out, okay? Because this is when we're tossing ideas up in the air. It's like chaos, just throwing everything up, and then what happens is it settles down, and then we go through it. And so we have multiple chicken scratch schemes, and then we got 3 that were actually visually, basically a diagrammatic, kind of coherent as a diagram. Not real plans, but diagrams of ideas. And so we have 3 different graphics, and there are lots of ideas in each one of these graphics. So if there's one thing you don't like about a plan, but you like everything else, but you say, well, I don't like it because of that one thing, that's fine. Or, gee, this is the one thing I really like about this plan, but can you stick it over here in this one? That kind of stuff. So this is kind of the opportunity to do that. And I think we're gonna figure out, and then, present it today, and then we're gonna kind of go back and think about it slowly for a couple months. And then when we come back, we'll re-present these to remind everybody, what we've been doing. And then we do those 3 feedback loops in July, okay? And that's when, we're gonna set, we start off with 3 different graphics, maybe we consolidate it down to 2, and then maybe even down to, kind of a final edition. That's kind of the goal. So that's the process. And these are, these have ideas, and I'll talk about them, and I'd like for each of the team members to also chime in, because I'll forget things.
Okay.
Because there's lots of really cool stuff here, and there are different things. So this one, so this one is the idea of Banff, you know, in Alberta, Canada's Main Street. And it's beautiful, you know, classic Main Street. And at the end of it is this incredible mountain peak. You've seen pictures of it. I think we showed it.
Yep.
Okay. And so basically that's what we call the terminated vista, or vista point. It helps you with orientation. You always know where you're going, you know, because there's the mountain, and then of course, and then you want to celebrate what you have. So we took that idea with this type of space here. You know, this is kind of the Banff Main Street. And then we took another idea, because, you know, it's interesting when you come up the mountain, you're switchbacking, and you come up here and then you have this kind of road that goes around right here. You know, just kind of curved, actually it curves like this. It curves like this. And we said, gosh, why don't we just curve it back and make a large oval green? And there are two different examples of that you may know. Since some of you are from Florida, and you know St. Armand's Circle in Sarasota? How many people know that? Raise your hands. All right. St. Armand's Circle in Sarasota is a large circle that's kind of the town green, and it has lots of shopping and cafes all around the perimeter. And we can show you examples of that. The other one that you might know, but if you're from, you know, Washington D.C., is DuPont Circle. Okay, DuPont Circle, and they're both about the same size. This one's probably at least 2/3 of that size. So it doesn't mean it's a roundabout with cars going around it. That's just all about traffic, and you don't want to be there. It's so huge that, you know, putting a band pavilion in the center or something like that is really, really a great idea. And the fact that what you're doing, you have two-way traffic. Here's a conventional traffic roundabout size, and then this is, you know, what we're talking about here. What happens is you have two-way traffic going, they get these, it splits into, you know, one way. So basically, we drew the scale. This is not that accurate, but basically you only have one lane of traffic here and one lane of traffic here, and then as you go down the street, you know, it goes back to two-way. So it's nice because you break it apart. So when people are coming down the main street, crossing here is twice as easy. You go into the town green, and then you can come over here to, this is Town Hall, as a this is a Town Hall, and the graphics here are that the gray buildings exist. Here's the big pizza barn, here's Town Hall, and here are those existing shops, and there are other kind of gray, and here's Fred's, iconic Fred's, and then here's where we're living. We've been staying here. Now, so what we've kind of figured out is there's land in play here that goes up to the slope. So this becomes another ski slope, which also could be your sledding hill. You know, like the bottom could be a sledding hill, the upper, you know, this upper area could be the bunny slope or whatever, and then you arrive up here and then you can just take off. And so the idea is that when you live in the town, you know, anywhere up here, all these blocks, the blocks are in white, the streets are in yellow, and this is kind of where your shops and mixed use would be. And then down here, obviously, these buildings, kind of the reddish brown, maroon color, these are kind of just like footprints of buildings that are like the size of the ones on traditional main streets. You can see they're the same kind of footprint spreads. It's just, you know, you probably have a few of those, you know, here and all over the place. So basically, you come down and you can, you know, kind of cross over here and then go up that way. And also, this is a whole system of blocks. But anyone that lives, you know, all the way over here, with all this kind of new neighborhood, they can come here with their skis. We put a green, with their skis, they can get on their skis here, and they can ski, and then they might have to, like, you know, cross here and here, but they come over and then ski up that, you know, and then lift up here. And so in the wintertime, this can be covered in snow. If the whole thing covered in snow, it'd be a winter wonderland, and in the summer, obviously, this is the summer version, it's green everywhere. So that's kind of the main axial, kind of like in a central part, all through here, all around. And then we extended the green fingers. With, if you come up, this is your gateway right here. When you've kind of arrived when you're here, there's this, and this large swath of greenway that can, kind of take you through and connect you. We're making up places it can go, but there's a creek here, there's kind of a creek over there, dry creeks. And then basically all this kind of outward growth takes you all the way over, to the edge of the town property. And there could even be, because this is a 1/4 mile walk from here to here. You see this here? This is a 1/4 mile, so 5-minute walk from here up to here. I mean, if you go this way, it's probably a 7-minute walk. But one of the things you can do, as you're negotiating around town, you can get everywhere you want to on a greenway, or you can just get everywhere you want to on like a neighborhood street. It's either urban or kind of more nature, so it gives you that choice. And we haven't drawn the pathways in here, but you can just imagine trails running all over the place around through here. And then also all the streets having really nice sidewalks and, on-street parking. And yeah, that's kind of the main ideas here. There may be a way to kind of grow in this direction, and there may be a way to kind of, over time, the stuff can get modified somewhat if we try. So,
Tom, can I make a point?
please.
Got a little test for you. When you're driving in front of City Hall, take a look at the roadway. You may have to get out of your vehicle and park it, and then stop and look at that road that goes in front of City Hall and curves. It has super elevation.
Tell them what
That doesn't mean it's great, that just means one side is higher than the other. It has super elevation. And super elevation is the way the highway department would build it so it's more comfortable for you to go around the curve. Now, when you're talking about changing that from a super elevated roadway to a walkable city street, it has to be flattened. And because you don't have super elevation in downtown streets, where you're walking along. So that's just a little experiment that you can do yourself and learn what the super elevation is in front of City Hall. And you have it, obviously, all the way down the mountain. There's tremendous super elevation to get you around those switchbacks. But that's the difference in a road in the suburbs or the country and a city street. These city streets would all be flat for the pedestrians, the bicyclists, and the cars to go at a reasonable speed.
Yeah. In fact, there's a term called strode. Have you ever heard that? Strode is like kind of a street, but kind of a road, somewhere in between. You have a strode. You actually have a strode right now.
Current.
Is that right? Wouldn't it be a strode? Yeah, it's a strode.
Not a good version of each.
And then like there's an Instagram. I think on Instagram they post, here's another strode. It's like anyway. I think I was gonna say one more thing. Let's go to the next one, and maybe we'll come back.
So Tom, one other thing, I guess,
Yeah,
show it on this, we were talking about the center of gravity. This one has a heavy center of gravity around that circle in that main street that comes down. And Peter was trying to illustrate it in this next scene. Hey, Jonah, how do we? Okay, there you go. Yeah, kind of showing that there's the center of gravity, right, with the circle and the main street and the.
I think it actually, this would shift kind of like up to here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
We need to adjust it in the future ones.
I think that he came up with this idea first, and then we said we need to align it.
So you can see that everybody's drawing it once, not exactly coordinated.
Yeah, and I think this is actually twice the size.
Okay.
Pretty big. Yeah, we're just getting the details. See, we're not, we made a lot of progress. We were supposed to be, last night, we were like, okay, we got our meetings, now we can sit down and we can just draw all night. And we had dinner coming in, and then they said, well, you gotta leave at 7 o'clock.
Thank goodness.
And we were like, oh, okay, so we left. And so, you know, then that's why I was drawing while you were up when David was presenting. We're just trying to get as much done as we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are mistakes everywhere. Like I said, we always get things, you know, wrong.
Well, everybody hates an idea that's fully worked out, you know?
Right, exactly.
And there's that.
Oh, they're saying our, okay, you know, recognize, this is, it's funny, actually, the four sides are actually square. It's like someone said, it's like Barcelona's box, you know, they're chamfered at the corners.
So you get really nice views.
Yeah, is there,
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, nice views, yeah. And, you know, and then you can see where the crosswalks are, and you just basically make the loop around. You know, and then there's like all sorts of stuff happening on the inside. It's like it's a huge part, so, anyway. Okay, great. So now this one is, this is like inspired by Rick's diagram where, you know, as you become a town, your blocks get small and you create this kind of orthogonal system, you know, grid system. And so the idea of just overlaying this as a diagram, because we do have things like, you know, pretty serious topography and so forth, but it's a diagram overlaying like the quintessential perfect size block, you know, for a town center, really, you know, like where's the best size? Small, you know, and lots of intersections because you want as many shops on corners as you can get, because that's like, you know, actually retail grounds that way. So this is that, and also the fact that the sledding hill, which is kind of like in this area now, this becomes your town, what are you calling it? Sledding hill and town green. And basically just like many classic courthouse squares, you know, across the country, you have shops all the way around. We don't have a building courthouse in the middle. But we did propose, you know, another civic building here. If your town hall, it's like you just finished renovating, you probably already outgrown it, but, you know, and as you grow, you might, you know, and this could be a fire station, you know, that type of thing right up here. Nice, attractive buildings, and then the rest of it is shops. You know, these can be boutique hotels and all sorts of stuff here. And in this case, the road does curve, and there's actually a traffic roundabout, a smaller version here with a main street that comes down, and you basically a square. So your kind of existing street kind of stays, you know, pretty much maybe as is. Well, we want to fix a lot about it, like the super elevations and then a small circle here, and then basically in the heart of this kind of town center, you have this very large green that way. That's pretty straightforward.
Also, that one suggests maybe Main Street continues on and on and on as if Pinnacle would want to play.
Yeah.
We have to get there, you know.
Tom, can you point out the plaza as well and the slope entrance?
Oh, and then so, yeah, oh yeah, okay, this is like really interesting, really, this is cool. Similar to the Main Street, idea and the circle with the circle, and you can cross, you know, this becomes very crossable. This Main Street would come down and actually terminate on, at the, you know, there's a, gable end, gable end at Town Hall, you know, the main entrance. So this street lines up and terminates on that. So when you come down here, because we're kind of moving parking around, we were able to actually take all the parking over here out front and turn it into a pedestrian plaza. You know, a really nice kind of like brick cobble, you know, plaza. And basically then have even more parking over here. And then the idea that this could be, you could actually go around it and then up a slope here to actually get right on the, this was an incline, like an escalator?
Escalator, yeah, like,
Yeah, escalator
yeah.
to go up
Moving
right
carpet.
with your
Yeah,
skis,
that.
and a ski carry escalator.
Magic carpet.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the ones they have in the shopping cart escalators they have in grocery stores.
And then also the greenway is just point out the,
And there's a greenway,
You're
like,
right.
you know, along here, you know, cleaning that up, and, you know, and I think the idea, like, we've done, you know, especially in the last decade, a lot of the plans we've done, a lot of them, like, every other street is a green street, and a green street basically means that you still have sidewalks, you still have street trees, but where there's usually asphalt, that's just all lawn or green landscaping. And we always have rear lanes, back, so basically, you know, people park in the garages in the back, and then the front porches and so forth are all out on the Green Street. And some people say, well, I don't wanna live on a Green Street, I want a real street. Well, that's great, you know, just go over one block. You know, and so, and then other people say, I love the Green Street idea, my kids can run up and down, or, you know, I just love being on a green space. So, so this is something that's very popular, so we're showing that as kind of an example, and that could be, you know, this could probably be a Green Street too, or something, I don't know, even though I think this is pretty nice, you know. But this is cool, and also, like, you know, this could be, if, like, over time, if this became, if Town Hall wanted to move up here to a prominent location, this could be your visitor center, and you could actually have an arch opening, you go through and straight up, you know, like an outdoor arch opening. But you're, you know, throwing out ideas here. So, okay, so, just that kind of stuff. What else did I miss? Is there anything else? Yes.
No, that, I'm saying you're
Oh,
good.
yes, yes,
You're good.
yes, okay.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, let's go, and I guess the third one, make it in? You have a rendering too?
Yeah, we got a rendering that's probably,
Cool.
you know, not quite perfect yet, but
Each one of these plans, begs for something to be done with the Pinnacle over the next 10,
Yeah.
12, 14 years.
so this is looking next to our
The Pinnacle buildings,
Yes.
as opposed to that thing.
Right.
Let's look at Main Street view, Tom, with the, this is on the left is the
This is
sledding
the
hill.
green?
Yeah, that's our sledding
Yeah.
common.
Yeah.
And, little cafes on the right and multi-use buildings, and, straight ahead would be that plaza that Caitlin was referencing.
Any questions
I like
about
the
that?
vibe of it.
Pardon?
Yeah.
I like the vibe.
Good
The
vibe,
vibe,
starting, yeah.
yeah.
Pizza Bar is on the far left, and then maybe an addition with hotel or something, right back in the green. Scheme 3.
Okay, scheme 3.
Ain't
Still
still wet.
fresh, yeah, paint's still wet on this one. Okay, so this one kind of picked up on the idea that David presented earlier about the large oval, and there's a rendering that showed the houses around it.
Yeah.
And then it came up like this, and there was an oval here, and then went back down.
Right.
So it's like kind of an expansion idea to go and say, you know, wouldn't it be nice if these greenways came down to Fred's? You know, right here, this is his park. Right here is located, you know, the park with the little gazebo. So, and then also if we can bring it over here as the greenway at your gateway, your moment of arrival into your main street. And so basically we created kind of more of a radiating system of green fingers with a large, you know, a ginormous lawn, you know, common in the middle here that keeps going. See, all the way over here, and then there's a greenway that takes you down the hill behind the hotels, through the hotels, that area, that, you know, over time. You know, this is kind of like the final, you know, a drawing of what the final phase would be. There are probably at least 10 to 20, you know, smaller phases, like when, you know, when those old hotels redevelop, you know, later on, you know, that's, you know, this, then we extend, you know, stuff like that in that direction. So, and then also, this one we just kind of wanted to show, there is an alley system in gray here, just to show you that basically these lots front, all of these lots front, and basically there's a really nice system of connections through. All the way up the hill here, this is the new Public Works building. So, you know, all of these, this is rear lane, is the street here. This is probably, these buildings can probably see over the buildings here, you know, or something like that. So, and it just continues on, you know, and you just look at all the really nice lots, development lots, for all sorts of, you know, missing middle, you know, whatever missing middle housing and mixed use we want to do there. And then another thing that was, another idea in this, which is kind of separate, but still, you know, works well with this one, is basically turning, really making a beautiful Main Street where your Main Street exists now. I don't know if the street section is next on here. Okay. So what that means is that right now you have about this amount of pavement that exist, like 30 feet or so, with your shoulders. And so what we would like to do is actually create a street section where you have 2 travel lanes, you have on-street parking in various places, and then a large green median that can also serve as a natural drainage system, so that you know, it could be a flat lawn, or it could just be a grassy swale, or you know, it could be beautifully landscaped with trees, and you know, and then when it rains or there's snow, there's water, it's a meandering creek that basically helps, you know, but it's your stormwater management system as well, when water gets there. And then basically a wide sidewalk or a trail, 8 feet, or it could be 12 feet. These are just quick numbers, but if all this kind of fits pretty much in your 60-foot right-of-way, except for the trails are right outside of it. So this is your existing right-of-way and what you can do. Now, go back to the plan.
Okay.
Any questions on that? And again, it's really simple.
Snow management systems.
Snow management. All right, so that's here. See? Now what this means is, the second part of this is that we're taking all of this kind of mishmash of parking that's in front of the buildings right now. That's just kind of like, you know, and they have fences between, you know, one and the other, so you can't get around. What we're saying is that let's create what we call a parking alley, and that basically means kind of like a tree alley of head-in parking, just like a parking lot parking. And as an idea, which always never, you know, is this perfect, but the idea is that one lot back, or one development parcel back, on both sides, you have the ability to put in, you know, you could plan for continuous parking that basically is shared parking. And all along here, shared parking. And did you put the drawing up?
Mm-hmm.
Can you look and see what the number was at the bottom? It says TPL on it.
780.
Okay, so basically, there's 780 parking spaces here, without the big, overflow park. How many could you get in the overflow parking lot? Anybody know?
I think it's
that?
around 300 to 340, something like that.
300, 340, so you have double that. This has double that without having a big parking lot. And what you're doing is you're parking where you want to go to the businesses. Like here, if you want to go to the pizza place, you park here. If you go into town hall, you park here. And basically just, you know, and then also that includes on-street parking. And you only put on-street parking where you have businesses, you know, and then when you're going through greenways, basically you just want to keep it more narrow, you know, without the on-street parking. You don't want ugly cars in the middle of your greenway, you know, parked. So basically you're visually here and here, and then over here. Well, I think so, maybe not. But anyway, you get the idea. Yeah. Can you go back one more time?
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Then the other ideas behind this is that these are organic blocks, and you've got all your parking out here. So all of these buildings don't need their own parking lot. So just like Banner Elk's little restaurant village, these blocks could be developed as a series of, that's about the size of the Banner Elk restaurant village. So these could be that kind of thing where you park and then you go in these really organic little plazas with tables and chairs. But also, you know, this is opening out onto incredible, on this side of this lawn, there isn't a street, it's just on the uphill side. So, you know, everybody's just kind of like flowing back and forth all around that way. And then, you know, really good businesses, opportunities all along your main street here. And there's, you know, kind of a nice green in front of Town Hall. The way that this works is the parking that's in front of the pizza joint, the pizza barn, basically it grows wings and then basically creates an outdoor courtyard here in front. And you have this continuous trail, walking trail that goes just all the way, just keeps going. And then if you want to go here, then you come down, you turn in here, and you park back here. Or, you know, I mean, you can park anywhere, you know, and then just kind of easy walk. Again, this is that 5-minute walk distance, you know, all over that. And, you know, it's just their connections, just everything. Any questions on this one?
Did you lose the sledding hill on this one, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, sledding hill could be, you know, anywhere, you know, cause it's all sloping,
Yeah.
you know, so it's like, it could be one ginormous sledding hill. Cause it's really moderate, you know, that kind of thing, so, yeah.
Would you, I have a question. Would you have any vehicular access behind those organic villages?
You mean
Those
here?
ponds that you have, yeah, no, that's in front, but in the back, I'm just wondering if, with the fire department, if they would need access,
Oh,
to
like
those
a
structures.
building here?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I do know this, that, and we've got experts here in the room about that, but usually there's a maximum hose distance of 150 feet.
Yeah, that's what we usually use. You guys
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
200-foot attack line.
200 foot, yeah, so this is like, I think we're in hose distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you do it fire line, you know, in the back,
Yeah.
12 foot, may not be open to the public, but.
Yeah. The other nice thing about connected streets and blocks, there are always at least two ways of getting to a fire. Because you can come from either direction, and what's really nice about having alleys is that basically that means you have four ways of getting, because these alleys will be designed so fire trucks and garbage trucks can get through them. So basically you have four different access points for each building, which is, you know, really nice. And that's what we're talking with fire departments all the time, and we want them to kind of, you know, work, when you do the walkable streets, you know, we point out the advantages that way.
So what would be, some of your methods to try to control traffic speed? I know you were talking about the narrowing of streets, because that's a problem we have right now, is you have a lot of foot traffic crossing the Beech Mountain Parkway, and, you know, people are not necessarily paying attention to that, so.
Right. What do you think, Rick? What are the?
As I mentioned earlier, you take out the super elevation, and that'll slow the vehicles down. And then you get the trees planted on both sides, of the travel lanes, and that sensation of trees going by will automatically, make the driver feel like they should go more slowly. And then more frequent, cross streets. These are 300 to 400 feet on the side of a block, and then there's another intersection. And so that'll slow the drivers down.
Oh, street parking does.
I think those, with these drawings, that, I love the walkability idea of all of it, but so many of them have so much crossing of Beech Mountain Parkway, so I get that we're gonna try to slow the traffic down, but the reality is there's a ton of traffic. Like, then are we just backing it up down Beech Mountain
Well,
Parkway?
this is what you're doing, you're gonna cut it hopefully in half. Smart people are gonna go this way.
Okay.
And they'll go down and come back in here, or they'll go down and come back there, or they'll go all the way down to the overlook.
Did we have
We
that in
extended
that
all the way
drawing
down.
one also? Cause that big circle on drawing one, did we also have the back way?
All three of them
have a
have
second road, so
alternate
And that's
routes,
where-
yeah.
we're just, kind of dispersing traffic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really, that's a very good question.
Okay, all right, great, thanks, Tom. All right, so guys, there you go. We wanted to pick, we took the team out, the town employees and the design team out the first day while we were all still young. We want to get that picture. And so, and there's the map in front of us. So I really appreciate all your hospitality. This has been a fabulous week for us, and I hope we've, kind of got your ideas thinking. And we're really looking forward to continuing on this dialogue with you all. So next steps, Tom, I guess we'll be coming back for another full workshop in July, and we will begin with these very drawings that we have. But in order, we're also going to go into this sort of thing that Tom calls, well, this was the quick thought, nothing works. Time to take this a little deeper. All those questions you're just asking, trying to figure out whether some of these are just too crazy or whether there's some, redeemable elements of all of these. And so, we also appreciate your thoughts on all of this, right? So I guess I'm gonna put Whitney, you know, we'll be sort of trying to ground truth a lot of this stuff. Any thoughts that occur to you all, we'd like to figure out a way to collect it. So, you know, we'd love to get your opinions on all this. We can walk around the room, you can visit with us as we start to take stuff down. Or, do we have a way to continue to
Well,
to get
I
that?
mentioned yesterday, there will be a survey that will be asking you, and it's not gonna have these drawings on it particularly. But there'll be ways, Kate and I are gonna talk for the next, Kate and I are gonna talk in the next week or two, about bringing some of these, to you in different places, before the charrette, so that we can get some of those ideas as you have like started to think about it, and maybe, because maybe this helps unleash some of your own creativity.
Yeah.
What you're like, oh, I saw it this way, I never thought about it that way, we would really, you know, let's add this, or this
Yeah,
would be a
here's a
really
better
good
idea.
place for this, especially when it comes to those community gathering spots. Maybe not necessarily what kinds of businesses you want here, but more so of like how you might wanna get around, or how, what other, like, maybe there you've got an idea because you're like, there's a really cool view this direction. And how can we tie that in? So, those kind of things.
Thanks, Ben, do you have a comment?
Well, I just wanna, on behalf of all of us, we were pretty apprehensive. Most of us didn't even know what a charrette was. And I still gotta remember how to spell it. But anyhow, this has been a real opportunity, but I wanna just tell you, from my standpoint, and I'm sure these other folks, y'all are true professionals, you've done a wonderful job, and we're grateful for the time that you've been here spending with us, and we look forward to you coming back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So, yeah, and thanks to, thank you all for that great. Well, any comments you wanna put on the sticker boards out there? There's still
Look at
ladies.
all